Hello and welcome to Identify, the news, views and insights from within the events industry. I'm delighted to be joined by Grace Willis, who I'm going to introduce in more detail shortly. In a week or two where I've been seeing a lot of learning and development subject matters on LinkedIn and other platforms, and the importance that organizations are placing on the development of individuals and teams within their own organizations, and indeed helping them flower and grow into something even better for maybe moving on to other organizations. So I thought, what better than be joined by Grace Willis, who is indeed a rising star at Identity and herself has gone through various elements of training and development and indeed promotions here. So firstly, Grace, thank you very much for joining me.
Thank you.
And so what is your opinion on how organizations can support internal career development and kind of offer the upskilling of staff?
I think, so from my side of things, I think for one, having these progression opportunities and also having that internal career support around you will not only boost your staff morale, but your employees, I believe, will be more driven because there's room for progression and growth. So, for example, in my experience, I've worked for a couple of companies where I discovered there wasn't any room to progress upwards. So, for some people, they're happy with that. And if it works for them, that's great and perfectly okay. But for me personally, it got to a stage where I thought, well, what's the point? I don't mean that in terms of, what I was doing work-wise, but for my end objective, that goal, I didn't have one. So for me as a young person, in order for me to actually reach that goal or a goal, I would have to leave. So for another company, they could then, offer me that chance to develop and progress. And so with that, I think to offer development opportunities and really, upskill, I suppose, from within, as an employee, you'll be more driven, not only because of the progression, but because you'll also be working and learning alongside other industry professionals via on-the-job training, which, is only going to nourish further knowledge and experience within your business. As an outsider, people want to join your company. And as a business, it shows dedication and commitment to your staff. But in return, you're going to get much more from them within their job roles, because as an individual, they'll have a career purpose to want to be there.
And would you say, if you were looking for a new job, and I use if very carefully, if you were looking for a new job, would this feature very highly on your priority list?
Absolutely. Yeah, I think.
Number one or not quite? Money, training?
I think money comes into it, but I think obviously that then comes down to the individual as to whether they are more money driven or more career driven with, as in learning. But I think you will only get to that monetary level when you have that development in place and when you have that learning and that. Yeah, it basically is. So for me, I personally have to have an element of development and growth somewhere within that role for me to really harness onto and hit the ground running with.
And something we've both seen is the importance of internal promotion opportunities and how motivating that can be within your role, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And again, it kind of leans on all of the other people within the company who are there to support you and to drive you forwards with it, and just to learn and work alongside them, and for them to be, you did really well. It was really well deserved. We can see that. And you don't realize sometimes how well you're doing until you are promoted and other people then email you saying, I thought this was coming, like I saw it coming. Whereas as an individual, you have no idea, because all you're doing is just working hard and just doing what you're supposed to do. So.
And someone that receives internal training and development, what are your favorite tools to take that on? What sort of from schemes to ways of receiving that training? What do you like? How do you like it to be done?
Well, I personally get on really, and I kind of hate that I like this, but it's when I get thrown into the deep end with things.
Yeah.
It's purely because as me as a person, I won't drown. I won't allow myself to drown. I will always swim with it. And however hectic and chaotic it is at the time, I will learn, I'll get it, and I'll deliver from whatever you want me to do. So I think from my experience, being thrown into the deep end is a good thing for me. However much it can be very stressful at the time, it's always worth it. But not always, that doesn't always kind of come into play with things. Sometimes you have to have that element of structure and seeing your goals and the steps as to what you can take in order to get to a certain level or achievement.
So you describe something that I see from a generation similar to yours, is where on the job training is what actually you enjoy the most. So you get thrown in the deep end, mentor from the experienced people are there. You learn best by doing the task and learning from your mistakes and how to do it. Are there, which I believe also is the best way to learn, and we talk a lot about our identities, how shadowing and mentorships can work, and even following on from my last subject with Faye, what about things like LinkedIn Learning, YouTube Learning, video stuff that comes through, written text? Is there anything, or would you always just prefer to do it live, or do you like having this library behind you?
No, I think it's important to have that library and that kind of resource behind you, not only because you can make your own notes and have that to hand when you need to look at it, but also just something that you can, constantly refer to and have as a basis that you can kind of tap into every now and again, but that will only apply when you're actually doing the role. So it's kind of like, I see it that it's like when you learn to drive. So you do your test and you learn the basics or the principles. Let's say you do that via your library, and then it's only when you pass your test and you go out and actually you're by yourself driving is when you properly learn. And I think that's the same thing when you're in the role that you're in.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, so wrap up as well. Why do you think, as be relevant to some of our suppliers and agencies that listen to this, why is this good for employers for attracting talent?
Particularly young talent, I think it's important because, you have students who have just come out fresh from university, who are ready to hit the ground running. You have other young individuals who didn't go to university, but they are chomping at the bit for an opportunity to arise. You also have others who may be looking for their next career step, or who are already on the career ladder, but may have been affected by the pandemic. I think regardless of which category that young person falls into, as an employer, I think there's a huge opportunity to take advantage of the talent that is raw. It's raw. It's likely not to have picked up any bad working habits, meaning that essentially it makes things a million times easier to encourage your company ethics, your company values, your working style or your preferred working style, and to generally implement everything that you would want from a member of staff. And all of this stems from the fact that the majority of young career-driven people want to learn and they want to make a good impression. And, from their perspective, you've opened that career door to endless possibilities, and essentially so that they can crack on with their career marathon, I guess, that all of us have started at different stages of our lives that we're all still running.
Nice. And for me, I think you never stop learning, and so I think that is relevant to young people as well as anybody in this different stage in their career.
I agree.
Look, Grace, thank you so much for your time. Thank you for kind of sharing your story and your thoughts. You're a great success story here for us. I think you're a great role model for young people wanting to get into the events industry, but also young females wanting to get into the events industry too. So
thank you.
Well done. If you've liked anything, you want to know more about learning and development, want to understand a bit more about career opportunities at Identity, please leave a comment or like below. And thank you very much for listening. See you next week.